Greetings folks. A friend of mine recently asked me how I would go about programming up a PSS plane using the Q X7 Taranis and OpenTX. PSS, what's that? Power Scale Soarer. It's basically a scale model that's been turned into a slope soarer. So I'm going to use this Mustang to demonstrate it on. Forget about the motor, that doesn't exist in this context. No rudder, we've only got ailerons and elevator on Pat's plane, so let's get to the programming. Okay, so we're going to start with a fresh model for this one. You can copy another model if you have another one set up, which is often a good idea. It makes setting things up a lot quicker, but anyway, we'll start with a new model. So create model, yes. Now I don't want to go through the model creation wiki, so I'll just exit out of that. Now we can put in a name here, but I won't bother doing that. So now we scroll down to tell it which module, which RF module we're using. We're using the internal RF module. That's the one, that's the only choice. Channel range 1 to 16, you can reduce that down to 1 to 8, 1 to 8, and it gives you sort of a lower lag, but that's not an issue with flying planes, so we'll just leave that as it is. Next we choose a receiver number. You can just use it, leave it at 0, or choose a unique receiver number. We'll just leave this one at 0. Then you bind your receiver in channel 1 to 8 with telemetry on, off, or channel 9 to 16 with telemetry on or off. We just want 1 to 8 with telemetry on. And failsafe, we need to set a failsafe, and it's usually just no pulses. There we go. So moving down, you can set up timers if you want to. What am I looking for? Trim steps, I usually go for coarse, just so that you get a decent change when you're playing with the trims. Okay, so that's all for the setup page. We're not using flight modes. Now, when you create a new model, it automatically sets up these inputs. So you have an input screen, a mixer screen, and an output screen. I do most of the work on the mixer screen here. The developers of OpenTX sort of assumed that we would use the inputs, then the mixer, and then maybe the outputs. But if you're just doing a simple model, you don't need to define any inputs. You can define like 32 inputs here and call them up in the mixer page. Now, if you're not doing fancy mixing, you don't really need to use these ones. You would only use these suggested inputs if you need aileron differential as well as expo on the same ailerons, and I usually don't use that, so I'm just going to get rid of them. So we have no defined inputs at the moment, and that's already pre-populated that, but I want to do all this myself, so get rid of them. You can just accept what they've put in there if you want to, but I like doing it this way. Okay, so Pat's plane has 2 aileron channels, so we'll put ailerons on channel 1 and 2. Doesn't have a motor, but we'll plug the BSE or the battery into channel 3, and elevator will be on channel 4. If we had a rudder, we'd put on channel 5. So push and hold on channel 1, and it pops the aileron stick as the input. See that little stick symbol there instead of the eye symbol? That means that is the aileron stick, which is what we want. Same for channel 2, so we can grab and copy that down. Channel 3, we don't need to put anything there, and channel 4, push and hold, and it automatically puts the elevator in. If it doesn't do that, you can choose it from the list: aileron, throttle, elevator, rudder, and then you can go into the switches and the inputs and trims and all that sort of stuff. We just want the elevator stick. There it is there. So that's enough to get you flying, but if you want to soften the control, Pat said his plane was very twitchy. It's got full span ailerons, so you may want to edit this input. You can drop the weight, but I would prefer to do that by moving the push rod on the control horn and the servo if you can. if you've done all the adjustment you can on the plane, then you can drop the weight this way. So we'll drop it down to, I don't know, 60%, something like that. And you would usually want expo as well, and that's under this curve line here. This is where you'd put in differential, or if you want to change that to expo, you can do expo. So I would usually start with 30% expo. If it's particularly twitchy, then you could even go to 50% expo. On my LaFish planes, which are ridiculously over controlled, I even have 90% expo on the ailerons. But I usually start with 30. So we'll put that at 30% expo. So let's go back. So there you can see the weight is 60, the input is the aileron stick, and we've got 30% expo. Now, rather than doing all that stuff again for channel 2, I'll just get rid of that line, and I'll grab this line and just scroll down, and it'll copy it down to the next channel. So now we have the same settings on both ailerons. Same for the elevator. You may want to calm down the elevator a bit, maybe put that down to 70%, who knows, you sort of have to fly it and work it out. And we'll put some expo on the elevator as well. So there we go. So we're pretty well set to go now. So have a look at your model, see how much throw those settings give you. With a really twitchy model, you may only want sort of 10 degrees up and down to the ailerons and maybe 15 up and down to the elevator. So you would play with these weight values until you get the throws that you think are going to be right. You'll need to check which direction the control surfaces are moving after you put these mixers in. If any of them are moving in the wrong direction, you can make the weight negative. And that will reverse the direction. Or you can go to the outputs page and scroll down to direction and select inverse or not inverse as required to reverse that channel. So let's see how that looks on the Mustang. So ailerons and elevator. Well, they look good enough to start with on this model. With Pat's model with the full span ailerons, you probably wouldn't want that much throw, so you may drop the aileron weight down a little bit. So there you go, that's the most basic setup for a sloper, two or three channel sloper with no rudder, and just using the mixer page, not the inputs page. Thanks for watching.